We're live?
Mayor, we're ready.
All right. Welcome to the July 16th special meeting of the Glendale City Council, called to order at 3:10 PM. May we have roll call?
Councilmember Brotman,
Here.
Karpetian,
Here.
Kasakian,
Here.
Najarian,
Here.
Mayor Asadrian.
Here. And may we have your report?
The agenda for the Tuesday, July 16th, 2024 special public meeting of the City Council is posted on July 11th, 2024 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
And what's next?
1, Police Department regarding tow contractor request for proposals. A, motion to release request for proposals.
Good afternoon, Mayor Asatrian, members of City Council. I'm just going to invite Lieutenant Topazikian, who's eagerly ready to make this presentation for you.
Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and Council members, staff, City Manager, City Attorney. I'll kick off the PowerPoint. My name is Tigran Topajikian. I'm the Bureau Commander for the Glendale Police Department Traffic Bureau. And I'm here today to briefly present on the tow request for proposal. We commenced the initial one that needs to be renewed and come out for a new RFP in 2015. Council adopted it in 2016 of April, and that was a 5-year contract. The 5-year contract expired. The contract had a provision for two-year renewals. Both of those were exercised in 2021 and 2023, and the current contract expires July 31st of 2025. The contract awards 3 tow operators in the city, District 1, District 2, and District 3. Those are the current operators. Currently, District 1 is Gaze Tow, District 2 is Mid-Valley Tow, and District 3 is CV Tow. Those are the current operators. These are the districts that the RFP will seek to have tow vendors apply for consideration. When the RFP is released and we receive the proposals, those proposals are graded on 6 predetermined scoring criteria. They were the same scoring criteria used in the initial contract. It includes the qualifications of personnel and management, service requirements, facility and equipment requirements, prior experience references, and the financial viability of the tow companies that are responding to the RFP. Once we receive those and we open them, we will, by committee, review the documents and conduct site visits. We will perform an evaluation and analysis. The team will then submit the recommendations in writing to the Chief of Police, and the department and the chief will bring the recommendations to City Council for final approval. The members of the committees would be myself, Tina Hartunian, the dispatch manager. Tina is our parking and services supervisor currently, the dispatch manager, a representative from finance, and a representative from the city attorney's office. So there's different eyes and different points of view that can all work collaboratively in reviewing the RFPs. And now I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
Do any of my colleagues have any questions? Councilmember Karpetian.
So, thank you for your report, and thank you, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. These 3 companies that we have right now, how long have they been serving the city of Glendale?
They were awarded the initial contract in 2015, so about approximately 9 years.
9 years. And are we happy with their services?
For the most part, they're providing the services as required by the contract.
Right.
And if anything needs to be addressed, the police department is active and collaborates with the city attorney's office to address any type of complaint that comes in.
Okay. And just to be fair to everyone else, we're going through an RFP to...
Correct. To have an open competitive process.
Which is fine. I mean, I'm
Yes.
not against that, of course.
Yes. And some of them have been repeat awardees. Some of them have been, new. And some, I believe that where previous awardees are going to be submitting a proposal because they understand the RFP is coming out.
And what's the fiscal impact of this contract for the city?
Currently, there's not a significant fiscal impact as far as a cost to the police department. There's soft costs with the response times. We provide tow hearings. We collect fees for the tow hearings. We collect a vehicle release fee. Each vehicle that is impounded or towed requires that the owner of that vehicle submit a $271 fee to the tow company that is then forwarded to the city on each car that is actually released.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Councilmember Kasakian.
In the past, there was a lot of discussion and talks, about tow contracts, and one of the items that would come up is, I believe the tow companies had to have a facility within the city boundaries. Is that correct? Or has that been modified? Where do we stand with that now? Is it to our interest to have it within the city or not?
Councilmember Kasakian, we allow for a half mile outside of the city limits for a quick response time because they might be able to locate property or find property or operate within a half a mile of the city of Glendale borders.
But no more than.
No more than half a mile.
All right, and I'm glad that this is up for a transparent process, because in the past, I think these tow contracts have been a serious point of contention. Hopefully, this goes smoothly. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Other questions? All right. Well, I have some things that I would like to add to the RFP, and maybe you can answer them. I don't know if they're in there, but as it pertains to any tow company, a lot of times they are closed on weekends, and the car's towed on a Friday. Individuals end up not being able to pick up their car until Monday, Tuesday, getting them to incur additional fees that they had no plans to do. And I'm happy to indulge in a fun story from some years ago, but I've kind of seen firsthand how something could go from, having to pay maybe $150 to $1,000, and tow companies using that experience or opportunity to charge crazy amounts, not letting people pick up their cars. Can you talk about that, and if any of that is addressed in the proposal?
Yes, Mayor. So vehicles that are stored, those owners can go to those tow companies and retrieve those vehicles at any time. The tow companies do charge an after-hour fee for the services that they would have to perform after business hours. So they are able to go and retrieve those vehicles. The vehicles that are impounded requires a vehicle release form issued by the police department. And as long as I've been the Traffic Bureau Commander and Police Services Supervisor Tina Hartunian has been supervising the front desk. Anybody that comes in, even though we're about to close a register, we engage in the exceptional customer service and hold it open to try to accommodate as many people as we can that walk in and want to get their vehicle released. Those vehicles that are impounded, there could be several reasons, for the impound that requires that vehicle release form to be authorized by the department. It could be evidence. It could be a 30-day hold. So there's an administrative process they'd have to go to get those. If there's direction to be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that would be the fiscal impact, which would require staffing the front desk by somebody in case a member of the public wants to come in and get a vehicle release. However, that needs to get cleared with a detective, depending on the reason that it's being held. Some of it they cannot take out of the tow impound yard is because, for example, the registration might be expired. So they would have to go to the DMV, get a one-day moving permit to do their SMOC check, pay for the registration, show proof of the registration before they can obtain the vehicle release form from the department. So there's several examples where it might work, and there's several other examples where there's other steps to go through in order for that vehicle to be released. But generally, on a stored vehicle, they can go in any time and pick that up.
Okay. I'm speaking to not cars that are impounded. I'm speaking to cars that, for example, they parked in the wrong spot. They called the city. The city ended up having one of the tow companies come out and tow the car. And if I want to be specific, I'm going to give you an example. I think the year was 2016, 17. I was on the Parks Commission, went down to get in my car to come to the commission meeting, and my car was gone. I thought it was stolen. I called PD and filed a report for a stolen car, only for the cameras to see that the car was towed, not of any wrongdoing on my part. There was miscommunication between each of the departments at Honda, whatever it may have been. I ended up spending $90 to get to a Parks Commission meeting. It was done on a Friday. Went and called the tow company. They said I couldn't pick it up until Tuesday, not even Monday. All my stuff was in the car. Honda notified them that it was by mistake. They would not release the car. I actually had to go get an attorney friend that I still had to wait until Monday. I just showed up on Monday. Still had to show up with an attorney to force them to give me my car back, even though they were open, but they were holding an appointment for Tuesday. And so in that moment, what I think about is somebody that's on minimum wage, trying to get to work, and all of a sudden they don't have the amount to get to their job. All of a sudden they don't have a car for 3-4 days. They don't have the money to cough up. And when we talk about after hours, even if it's on the weekend, we're talking about $200, $300, $400 for each of those days, which end up being like $1,500 by the end of this, which for a regular person is a lot of money. And so what I'm trying to figure out is there a way for us, if we're going with a certain company, to make sure that these kind of shenanigans are not done by companies that we are contracting out with?
Yes, that'll require a
That was a
two-party.
long story, sorry.
No problem, Mayor. And I would empathize with anybody going through that experience and
Right.
having to pay $1,500 to get a car out. The police department does not tow off of private property, so this would only address the tow companies we are contracting with when we're officially responding for a call for service where vehicles are on public property.
Doesn't
So-
matter where it
so-
is. The issue's the same.
However, we do not regulate any tow company that tows off of private property. And so in that instance, if a tow is improper, there are certain sections in the vehicle code and the business and profession codes that if the tow company violates, the police department can engage, an investigation for violation of those crimes. For those that are towed off of private property, we take, full responsibility with administering it. And in the RFP, there is a provision in there for them to be able to release vehicles after hours and on weekends.
Okay.
You
So-
said private, you meant public. In
I'm
that
sorry,
sentence,
yes,
you meant
from
public.
from the public tows. From the private property, the
Yeah.
property owner can call any tow company, even outside of the limits of Glendale. And yes, sometimes there are some incidents where certain tow companies have engaged with, improper, charging of fees. But there is a legal process or a criminal process for us to be able to look into those sorts of allegations. On this end, we can control with the times that we're open. We communicate that, to the public. We stay after when we know somebody's coming so that they don't, face this burden. And if the tow is done improperly, those that are part of the RFP, we inform them of the claim process. We mitigate those complaints. At certain times, we've investigated, and if we've been in the wrong, we've apologized and we've reimbursed, the individual that had their car towed.
Okay. So what I am going to ask is, as you're going through this RFP process, to look into what I've brought up. I'd like to see specifically the fees for after hours. I'd like to see the fees and the operating hours that they have, whether it's for impound or just on public property that's being towed.
Noted,
And
and we'll have that for you.
I would say that while as much as we may try to mitigate, I also am aware that not everybody, if they were in my situation, they wouldn't have an attorney friend who could go in with them, right? And how we check our privilege of the things that we have access to and how difficult a claim process may be for somebody that doesn't have those resources. So,
Duly noted. we'll get the information.
Follow-up, please.
Please go ahead.
So, I mean, that brings a good question. How does a tow company become authorized to tow from public property? If it's not a blatant, in front of a fire hydrant, let's say. Is there someone in our department that gives an authorization for that, or how does that generally occur?
The employee that's addressing that calls for service asks for city tow. And so that's the vernacular for the tow companies that are authorized. So the police department makes a request, and whatever jurisdiction that incident is occurring in, the tow company that's servicing that jurisdiction responds, and there's a police employee on scene, engaged with that tow.
So there is for lack of a better term, like a probable cause determination to tow a vehicle. And even though there's a mistake, let's say in the paperwork or something, on its face, there's some sort of determination as to a valid reason for tow.
So all tows that the police department is involved in are pursuant to an authorization included in the vehicle code. There's a long list of them. I think they go from A through P in 22651 of the California Vehicle Code, and there are a lot of different subsections authorizing when a vehicle can be removed by a governmental agency, and that is what we abide by.
I mean, give me an example of just one.
Sure.
The most common, let's say.
Most got like a car that's parked on the street unoccupied that has a registration for over 6 months expired with unpaid. There's been, some legal case law, but 5 or more unpaid parking citations from the municipality on that vehicle that's gone to DMV. The driver arrested, and there's no lawful place to park, and there's no passenger that's licensed to be able to drive the car. The driver that's arrested for driving under the influence, and there's nobody else to release the vehicle to. So those are just, the vehicle has been stolen, vehicles that have been abandoned,
Right, okay.
engines and major components missing from the vehicle. So there are a long list of sections that authorizes a governmental entity to engage in that tow.
Thank you.
And a report is generated on every tow that we are towing on behalf of the governmental agency.
Thank you very much.
That's all I have. Anyone else? Okay.
I'll move the item
right.
if we're ready for that.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Brotman,
Yes.
Garpetian,
Yes.
Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Asadrian.
Yes. What's next?
Next item is number 2, City Attorney regarding a nomination process for boards and commissions, a resolution establishing a recruitment and selection process for appointment of individuals to boards and commissions. B, motion removing Title II board members and commissioners subject to their replacement or reappointment. C, resolution establishing the procedure to address complaints or allegations of misconduct or poor performance against members of boards and commissions. D, ordinance for introduction amending Glendale Municipal Code 1995, Section 236010, pertaining to the terms of members of boards and commissions. E, motion providing direction to staff.
Do we have a,
Yes, if I may, Madam Mayor. On May 14th, the council directed staff to prepare the appropriate legislation to implement the nomination process for boards and commissions that was previously in place, where each council member gets one nomination to each board and commission. And the terms of the boards and commission members will be coterminous with the term of the nominating council member. So we have 4 action items for you. First is the resolution re-implementing that one nominee per council member rule. For the Civil Service Commission, the nominations will go in alphabetical order, but skip any council member who has nominated, either individually or as part of a panel, a sitting commissioner whose term is not up. That rule is intended to ensure fairness and applicability with respect to the Civil Service Commission, who serve 4-year terms and cannot be coterminous with council members' terms. I would note that 3 of you have participated in recently selecting the last year or so members to the Civil Service Commission. So Councilmembers Garpetian and Najarian will have the opportunity to nominate to fill the 2 additional slots for vacancies. Under the resolution, council members will have 30 days after the announcement of a vacancy or pending vacancy to make a nomination, which may be extended another 30 days for factors such as lack of qualified candidates or unavailability of a council member to consider nominations. The council member will have an additional 30 days at that point and must make his or her statement as to why they are extending their period for an additional 30 days. After that second 30-day period, the council may choose to designate another process to select that nominee, whether it's assigning it to a different council member, assigning it to a panel, or taking some other action, or allowing the council member to retain the nomination and make a nomination in a subsequent amount of time. I would note that that provision that I just read was in the previous process, however, wasn't really significantly utilized, and so there were times when nominations held out for a long period of time. So if it's the council's desire, we will work with the clerk's office to make sure that those timelines are met and the information is brought back to the council and the nominating council to make sure that they're following up on their obligation to make their nomination. The second item that is before you would be a motion to remove all of the Title II boards and commissions, so all the commissions other than the Civil Service Commission, subject to their replacement or reappointment. So this will allow the council to implement that 1 nominee per council member process, and it would start the process on the 30-day clock until the vacancy is filled or the nomination is made. The third item would be the ordinance that's before you, which would be introduced today and brought back for adoption if the council desires, and that would amend the municipal code to make the terms of the board and commission members coterminous with the term of the nominating council member. That amendment is necessary to take it out of a strict 4-year rule. And then the fourth is the resolution regarding complaints of misconduct or poor performance of board members or commissioners, and that's just to include the nominating council member back into that process. It wasn't previously. We took it out when we tried the panel process, and so we're recommending obviously to put that back into the process. Happy to answer any questions regarding any of those items or the process in general. Regarding that process. And I do, on the dais, I put the existing civil service commissions, who nominated them, how many terms they have. It's on a sheet. The clerk's office prepared that with our office's oversight. But again, happy to answer any questions you may have.
Other questions?
Question?
Councilmember Najarian.
Can you elaborate on 2C, which is the procedure to address the complaints?
Certainly. So there has been a process in place for quite some time relating to a process where commissioners are, for example, either they've engaged in misconduct or poor behavior, or they've engaged in poor performance, meaning maybe it's clear they can't follow the proceedings, or they're having difficulty following the proceedings, or they are absent, although I would say there's a different process for absenteeism that's in the municipal code. And so there's a process by where if there's a complaint made about a board member or commissioner, it's brought to the city manager. The city manager determines whether or not it's sort of a minor thing that the department head can talk to the commissioner about, or if it's something that may require some level of investigation by our office. Then it's brought back to the department head and the city manager and our office, as well as maybe the chair of the commission. And then this would add in, obviously, the nominating council member to be part of that process. The resolution also, though, does provide, though, notwithstanding any of that, it is always the right of the nominating council member to intervene and directly speak with that particular board member or commissioner to see if there's issues that can be addressed in that manner. And that was the intent, frankly, of the 1 nominee per council member, to have some level of accountability between the council member and the board member commissioner that he or she nominated. So that's kind of where that is. So it's the revisions to that resolution are minor. It's just basically bringing that nominating council member back into the process.
So, I mean, let's say the nominating council member has spoken to them and they have not changed, and then there's the next level, and let's say it comes to the council. Does So what does council do at that point? Because we had this before with a few others, and you wrote a memo on it that I dug up while I was doing some other research. Is it a quasi judicial hearing before the council?
In our view, it's a legislative determination the council can remove the individual. They serve at the pleasure of the council, so there's no property or liberty interest in a commission position. Council can remove somebody if they feel, and this has occurred in the past, they're speaking on a matter of public concern that's inconsistent with the public policy pronouncements of the city council, for example. Or it can also remove a board commissioner if they're speaking in a manner that is, or engage in conduct, I should say, that's inimical to the city's best interests. Maybe exposes the city to liability, for example. But there is a wide latitude there for the council to remove a commissioner, for example, if they deem it's in the city's interest to do so.
So the council would have to make some sort of reason, state some reason for the removal.
In my view, it's basically just making a determination it's in the city's best interest to do so. They don't have to make a specific factual finding or state a reason. They can just make that determination. And frankly, the nominating council member, the idea here is the nominating council member can decide that he or she feels the person's just not doing a good enough job, or they have somebody else that they think will do a better job.
It's broad.
It's broad.
How about for First Amendment issues? If a commissioner, right, gets on a blog and says a particular council member isn't fit for office, he should be ashamed and is a disgrace to the city, is something like that a reason to use, or are they protected by the First Amendment?
Given that they hold a role as a commissioner, as an advisory body to the council, they don't have property interest or liberty interest, and they, under the First Amendment law, they're deemed to be what's called a policy maker, meaning the council is free to remove any board or commission member for any reason. There's no protection there in the First Amendment realm.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments?
Let me ask a question if I could. Just kind of following up on a point you made about being able, if we go back to the old system, then it's one council member, one commissioner or board member. The council member can, I think you said, at any time ask that person to step down and replace them
Correct.
for any reason,
Correct.
or
And
no reason.
Right, and ultimately, the council retains the right to, it's the council's decision to remove them. So I think the understanding I'll just tell you, the understanding, the first time this was brought, this one nominee per council member, was that the council would, absent some extenuating circumstances, would take the advisement of the nominating council pretty seriously and agree to remove that person if the nominating council member wanted to. But it's ultimately the council's decision. They're not bound by it. And I would note, ultimately, yeah, you can ask a board of commission member to resign. They don't necessarily have to. In that case, you would have to bring it to the full council to ask them to be removed.
Okay.
Right. Councilmember Kasakian?
Thank you. When this issue was last brought up, and as the report states, in 2023, when we changed the way we made appointments, I advocated for us to have the panel system. I wanted us to separate and depoliticize the appointment process of having a perception of a patronage system where people felt that they needed to either lobby or curry favor with individual council members in order to be able to serve our city on various boards and commissions. I thought the system we had in place, where we had panels where all of us, even though we may individually disagree on policy issues, were able to sit down, interview prospective candidates, and then make a determination from the applicants who was best qualified, and then come before this council for full council vote of approval, was a system that was working well and fine, and I think deserved an opportunity to have more than at least a year of practice before we made a policy shift. back to a way of a system that I did not believe encouraged a diverse pool of applicants, and for that reason, Madam Mayor, I will not support the items that are before this council this afternoon.
All right. Councilmember Garpetia?
And then I'll-
Yes, thank you. You know, we discussed this issue in a couple of hours last time that was before us, and I still believe that every council member has the right to appoint his or her commissioners. And at the end of the day, the council as a body, all 5 of us have to ratify that decision. And if there's a problem, we can always vote no on appointing a commissioner, and council has that opportunity. I believe 30 days to come up with the names of the individuals is a short period of time, because by the time you announce it, they file applications, and then you have to announce it, for example, your commissioners this week, and vote on it next week, so you will lose 1 week just in that. But you have 3 weeks actually to come up with the names and interview everyone, and it's tough. And one of the issues with the panel system is that, you know, coordinating scheduling with other council members is a little bit tougher. I support this item, and I just want to make sure that, in a nutshell, in a simple language, we have each council member will appoint his or her commissioners, and then the commissioners' terms, and everything else is pretty much the same as it was before. The commissioners' terms end with the council member's term, and if the council member is re-elected, can reappoint, and if not re-elected, the new council member can keep or replace that commissioner.
Councilmember Garpetian, that's correct. Each council member will nominate. Obviously, it's still subject to full council approval, but it'll run to the term of that nominating council member. And just so we're clear, the way that works is if a council member nominates someone and that person is appointed by, ratified by the council, that commissioner would serve, and let's say a council member, either that council member chooses not to run or runs but is not reelected, that person continues to serve until his or her successor nominates a replacement who is then appointed. And also, if I could just add,
Before, right?
it's pretty much the same. The only thing, we provide a little bit more definition on how civil service will work, so there was some confusion, even amongst staff, how that was going to work, but we put some
If you
definition
have
in there.
60 days, I think it will give us, if you have consensus on it, 45 days, 60 days, to give us enough time to review the applications and interview candidates and.
I was just going to suggest another time period if you weren't comfortable with 30. I do agree 30 is pretty short. We just followed the prior process, but I don't think there will be any angst on the staff side if you put it out 60 days.
And with that, Madam Mayor, I'm in support of this item, and when it comes to vote, I'll move the item.
Councilmember Brotman, did you have more comments?
Yes, I have some comments. So I'm of a like mind with Councilmember Kasakian on this. I thought the new system that we put in just a year and a half ago, I forget how long ago it was, I think it was an improvement on the old system for the reasons that have been stated. One, I think it helped assure that the candidates that were coming forward and being nominated were consensus candidates, and it broke the perception, or it eliminated the perception that commissioners answer to a particular council member. I know in the past, at least one incident where a commissioner voted in a way that the appointing council member did not approve, and that commissioner was then removed, which definitely sends a strong message that the commissioners are acting as a proxy to the council member. And even if none of us are engaging in that type of behavior, I think that's the perception. So I think that the current process is good. If there are 3 votes to, and I won't be supporting the change, but if the change does occur, I will, and I think we all should take to heart the point that Mr. Garpetian just said, which is ultimately it's council as a body that has to ratify. And in the past, we deferred to the nominating council member. It was very rare that somebody would vote no on a nomination. If we go back to the old system, I just want to state very clearly that I will not take that approach. I will look very closely at the qualifications and the character of the person that's being appointed, and I won't hesitate if I'm uncomfortable with that person to vote no. So I think if we go back to the old system, I would just want to set the expectation that it will be different, at least as far as I'm concerned. I won't be rubber stamping nominations from my colleagues. So that's where we are.
So a couple of things for me. I think one, when we had this item come up last time, I said that my biggest issue with the new system was making sure that each council member has an opportunity to appoint to each, and especially incoming or new council members had the opportunity, just as the folks that have been here prior, to be able to appoint. I'm going to ask again, is there a way with the system that we have now for a new council member coming in to have the same opportunities to serve, to appoint to each of the commissions, even if it's on a panel system? Yes, I'm looking for an answer for that.
I think, Mayor Satrian, there probably are some ways to address it, but it wouldn't be immediate. And so for those of your colleagues that would like to have the opportunity to nominate, short of removing a number of commissioners, I don't think it would have the impact that I think some of your colleagues are looking for, and I'll leave it at that.
So how many commissioners are we talking about here?
Again, it's hard to answer without going through each of the commissions and figuring out.
I mean, I'm actually looking at this. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we've had 8 appointments, 2 commissions on this panel base that we've set up. Everybody else
Except,
that's serving on a commission is through a direct appointment.
correct. So, except that you also remember that Councilmember Devine, former Councilmember Devine, nominated a number of individuals last year who will serve 4-year terms. And I don't want to speak for Councilmember Garpetian, but I think that's one of his concerns. Short of removing all those individuals and then also looking through, and it just becomes very challenging. I don't want to say it can't be done. Frankly, I'd have to go back and look at how to implement that system, but give everybody the equal opportunity. The part of the I don't want to call it the beauty, but the way the panel system worked is that it was supposed to be a rotating system. So eventually, every council member would catch up in terms of number of nominees per system. I suppose you could start over, again, remove all the commissioners, just like you're doing now, and then implement the panel system that way. But I think, one, that'll take a little bit longer, and doesn't, and again, I know some of your colleagues won't necessarily agree that that's gonna serve their policy outcome that they're serving. But to answer I can't fully answer your question right now, because I'd have to look at the list and kind of talk with my staff and the clerk's office again. But I'm thinking it would be basically starting over with the nominations again, but with the panel system, and then everybody's gonna get a chance to have some voice on the panels. But because there's 5 of you,
Right.
and there's 5 commissioners, you're gonna have some council members that are not gonna be on every panel. I don't think there's a way to do it. As I explained last time, if the value is to give every council member an opportunity to have at least 1 nomination on each commission, then
It doesn't
what's
really-
before you today, that's what at least one of your colleagues I know wants to do.
Okay.
And so if that's the goal, then you have to follow what's on the agenda today.
But what you're maybe suggesting, I'm not saying you're recommending, as a solution, doesn't solve that problem 2 years from now. So I'm asking again, like, is there a system, we're gonna have elections in 2 years.
Right.
I don't know if any three of us are going to be running for reelection or whatever we're doing, right? So in comes 3 new council members
Yeah, those 3
Let-
council members will be able to appoint new members to the boards and commission.
on the panel system.
Not on the, it'd be hard on the panel system because you guys have mixing terms, right? Or conflicting terms. What I'm saying is in the individual system that's on the agenda today, whichever 3 council members are not on the council in 2 years, the successors to those council members will have the opportunity to nominate individuals to the boards and commissions. And I'm not trying to say that's a better system. I'm just saying that's the reality of it. And so when you do the panel system, you can't make it coterminous with the individual council member's term. And so what you'll have to do is you'll have to make them 4-year terms. And there will be times where this council members on this council, as well as new council members, will have to wait extended period of time to make nominations to the boards and to a particular board and commission. That's just the way the math will probably work out.
And if I may,
Yes.
Mayor Asadian, add to that, again, I'm not advocating for one way or the other, but if we have the panel system and all the commissioners will have to be renominated and reappointed, we have commissions that without quorum, and the challenge is scheduling these interviews, and it obviously takes longer time. There are commissions that without a quorum, it delays the processes that we take to them.
Okay. So I think I have 2 issues with, I think you've answered my question. So I have 2 issues with the way that things are written now. I'm not okay with the 30 days. I think that's too short. I don't know where my colleagues, 60 days,
I think 60 days.
60 days. And I think it would be helpful to get reminders from the clerk's office to any. And then what I don't want to do is wipe the slate clean and reappoint. I understand that you guys are saying that will be the easiest way to do it. What I would like to, because then you're starting a 4-year term for everybody. What I would like to do is,
If I may, Ms. Etcher, no, you wouldn't be. They're 4-year terms, but coterminous with the term of the nominating council member. So if each council member starts over, you will nominate the terms of the council members that are nominated by you and Councilmember Brotman and Councilmember Najarian will be until the 2026 election, whereas the terms for the individuals nominated by Councilmember Kasakian and Councilmember Garpetian will be until 2028. So that's how the code amendment will change the terms so that they will no longer serve for 4 years.
okay, so it's just from the time of their appointment. But that wasn't until reappointed, though.
Correct. Right. So, let's say you run again in 2026 and you're reelected in 2026, you could renominate all of your board members and commissioners, and they will serve 4 years until the end of the next term.
Was it this way
It was.
before? Okay. I was gonna just I was gonna try to just make things easier, and say the appointments that were made based off of the panel system, just do away with those and then have those be reappointed.
I'm sorry, because they were just reappointed, and it will take another 3 years or 4 years, some of them, for their term to be,
No, but you can so if you have any that were from Councilmember Devine, say, right? You can still appoint anybody that you want.
yeah, but the panel, if,
What I'm trying to avoid is all of us bringing back every single commissioner that
because
we
there's not
have.
that many of them. There is 1, 2, which was, one is the Historic Preservation Commission, basically. The other one is Planning, which was on panel system. Who else was on panel system?
Here, there's
Two,
8 appointments.
Right.
There's
so,
8.
So out of these 8 appointments, for example, me, I cannot appoint anybody to those 8 commissions.
No, I'm saying the ones that were done on a panel system.
Right. You're saying for them to stay.
No, I'm saying for them for everybody else to stay as is. So I don't have to reappoint all of my commissioners.
And Divines to be.
Yeah, I mean, you can, yes.
I mean, it's to give to give Garpetian a chance, because he's just stepping in.
So I think we,
I'm just trying to
I
avoid
think we're
bringing
making
all
it
of my
more-
applicants.
no, no,
Do they
you
have
don't
to submit applications again?
No, you can reappoint.
Of all those
them.
applications and anybody that you nominated, and you were happy with, you could just renominate them.
You can
you
just
put it on the
name them.
agenda.
and-
Do them all
I mean,
in
the
one
only- I think
list.
the only challenge, and maybe we need to adopt everything except for the motion to remove, and we could figure that piece of it out at the next meeting, but there are some commissions that maybe 2 of the members were nominated by the panels, and the other 3 were nominated by individual commissions.
Gets more confusing
And,
now.
and including former Councilmember Devine, and that's where you'd have to figure, okay, then how are you assigning which candidate to which council member? And that's sort of the challenge. So this was intended, and when we did it the last time, we went from the panels to this is how we did it. And although I wouldn't say it was smooth, it worked, because ultimately the council members had very strong opinions on who they would want to nominate in most commissions. There's a few, obviously, that it's harder to find candidates. But when we
Okay.
talk about planning commission, DRB, HPC, you haven't had a lack of candidates on those panels. So I think it moves pretty quickly.
Let me just give you one example, and I think that would make it easier to understand.
Sure.
So Councilmember Devine was on the board for Studies of, what is the CSC? Commission on Studies
Yes,
of
the
Women.
Okay.
With Councilmember Kasakian, with Councilmember Brotman, and she also appointed another commissioner. So she has 3 commissioners. She was on the panel for 2 of them and appointed for the 3rd term, the 3rd commissioner. So I think it would be very confusing. I think if you have all your commissioners in line that you appointed before, you can just name them and they can continue, and,
Okay,
you
all
know,
right.
we can bring our
Are we okay with
names back.
60 days? So I'm not going to change my position on this since
I'm okay
there's
with
no.
60
With
days.
notice,
With
with
notices.
reminders.
Yeah, reminders.
Okay. I recognize that 2 of my colleagues will not be supporting this change, so as just,
Madam Mayor, I actually put in a request to.
yes, please go ahead.
So, a couple of points I want to raise is one, in regards to the process where we deferred or approved, or council used to approve individual nominations. And the reasons why I want to give a bit of information and background on that. That wasn't always the case. I looked it up, and we have a great archival system. And on the July 25th, 2017 meeting, when it was a nomination of Mr. Roland Gedikin to Glendale Water Power and Commission, Councilmember Najarian actually voted no on the nomination, with Councilmember Devine abstaining, his reasons being his own. But if I recall correctly, as city clerk, it was because he had a lawsuit against the city. It was one of the reasons you had stated. I believe so, but I can go back and check the minutes.
He violated the FPPC regulations by
Right.
illegal campaigning.
All right, then it could have also been, that was one of the issues that was raised, if not the sole issue, since there were multiple reasons, perhaps for your opposition, or maybe that was the only one. The second item I want to say is that certainly the concern here is from Councilmember Garpetian about being able to participate in having a voice in who is on the boards and commissions. The panel system would allow and did allow that. Now, initially, there's going to be a little bit of a few bumps in the road because, as has been shown, Councilmember Devine had been on 2 panels before. I have spoken here previously about how I don't believe the panel rotation system was perfect, and we could certainly improve on that. But at a certain point, once we stuck with the panel system, at least for more than a year, we would then, through attrition of board members and commissioners, get to a place where it would be a smoother process than initially. No one is denying that initially it's going to have appearances of favoritism towards one council member because they were here and they appointed. Now Councilmember Devine is not. But once we get beyond that, whoever comes in, whether we have new council members or not, everyone will be rolled into a rotation, into a system that allows them to appoint someone to every board and commission. I think that was made clear even at the last discussion, that everyone will at some point get to be on a panel, and you'll have a voice on that. So I want to, I mean, think of it this way. I mean, right now, it's 5 people having a voice in individual seats, when you could potentially have influence over having 2 members on a board or a commission. And I think that's a good thing, personally. So that's why I think that I implore you guys to really stick with the system that was there before. I think it's grossly unfair to change it this soon.
Madam Mayor?
Councilmember Garpetian.
It's all right, it's all right. Well, I think it's very unfair because 3 council members appointed their own commissioners, then the system was changed, and the same council members were on panels and appointed other commissioners. And I think that's not a fair process. And again, we are having a new resolution, we are approving a new resolution. If a candidate or an applicant is really not fit to be a commissioner, or if the council as a body does not agree to it, they can just vote against it, and they have that choice. So, again, I'm trying to, make it a fair process, and I think this is the way to do it. Each council member will appoint his or her commissioners, and then we vote as a whole body, to approve or ratify the decision.
Well, Councilmember Kasakian, did you have?
No, but I mean, I will again say that I'm not supportive of this change. I think it sets us back both in the eyes of the public, and I think we'd be best served by having a more transparent process. I've been involved in this local body long enough to know what the perceptions are of the public of how these appointments are made, and I would like to see us get to a place where people have a greater faith in the system. And I think that starts with us being able to work with one another, being able to participate in panels, and the excuse that it's difficult to schedule these things. I mean, you schedule us, with all due respect to staff, for all sorts of meetings. I mean, with the advent of technology and Zoom, we can certainly make time for all of us to collaborate and make these processes work.
Okay.
We make a motion?
Well,
Or is there
well,
anything else
before you make a motion, I recognize that 2 of my colleagues are not going to be voting in favor of this, but regardless of that, 60 days, do you have opinions about the 60 versus 30?
I'd rather,
Another
I'd rather
number?
make it a little tighter, like 45, but,
That'll be okay, too.
just so we don't have things hanging around forever, There's some pressure to get the decisions made.
All right. I will just note that when I first got elected, I opened up the commission appointments to the general public. A lot of my actual appointments are people that I didn't know prior to putting that out there, and so I think it's up to each elected member to make sure that their appointment process is transparent, and we are elected by the people to represent, and I want to make sure that everyone's voice is counted in this. So with that,
So,
if there's a motion.
If I can.
Oh, wait, so, looks like, let's do, I'm okay with 60 days.
I'm okay with 60 days,
I
too.
think
I'm
it's a
you know.
safe number.
And just so we're clear, it's 60 plus 30, right? So you'll have an additional 60 days, an initial 60 days, and if that's not, you can't make the nomination, then council member will come and say, 60 days, I need more time, here's why. That was already part of the process,
Right.
so you're gonna get that additional.
That's
Okay.
fine.
Just wanna make sure you're, okay.
So how do we make this motion?
So it would be moving items apologies.
It doesn't say in here.
Be moving items 2A, B, C, and C with a revision to 2A to include, to make the process 60 days instead of 30.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
All right, can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Brotman,
No.
Garpetian,
Yes.
Kasakian,
No.
Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Asadrian.
Yes.
And then, Mayor Sargent, item 2D needs to be introduced. That's the ordinance.
I introduce the ordinance.
Introduced.
All right, and what's next?
Can I ask a question before we move on, just on this? So when does this go into effect? Can I, at the next meeting, bring in a list of nominees?
The resolutions were effective, they're effective at, well, they have to be, they have to be signed. So I would say after the next, not tonight, but the
Weeks.
next 2 weeks, you can bring it.
Okay.
When is the slate wiped?
It's same thing, when that resolution is effective and the motion is conformed. So it would be at the conclusion of today, so it does not now, so same thing, they'll be removed. But again, they still serve until their replacements are nominated and appointed.
Right. Okay. All right. Next,
Adjournment.
do I have,
I'll move to adjourn.
is there a second?
Second.
All right. Are we just rolling into the next one, or?
Full session, yeah.
Well, I would have to open up the regular meeting, no? Okay. Am I opening it up now, or are we waiting for
Yes,
this?
closed session.
All right. Do we, oh, well, you're going to read the report. Okay, I have to call it to order
Roll call.
first? Okay. Regular meeting of the Glendale City Council of July 16th, call to order at 4:06 PM. May we have roll call?
Councilmember Brotman,
Here.
Garpetian,
Here.
Kasakian,
Here.
Najarian,
Here.
and Mayor Asadrian.
Here. May we have your report?
One would be closed session. 1A, conference with real property negotiators, city designated negotiators, Rubik Galanian, Bradley Calver, and Noni Bolanikian. Instructions to the negotiators will concern the price and terms of payment for the acquisition of property, property location number 1, 220 and 234, 236 North Glendale Avenue, and 215, 217, 223, 225, 231, 231A, and 233, 235 North Everett Street. Negotiating parties, Darren Greitzer Trust, property location number 2, 309 North Orange Street, MGP 12 Glendale Central LLC, property location number 3, 332 and 336 North Adams. Negotiating parties, Adamian Living Trust, property location number 4, 1000 South Central Avenue, Araya Investment LLC. Item B, C, and E have been pulled. I'm moving on to item D, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, Najarian versus City of Glendale, LASC case number 24STC P02101.
Madam Mayor, we don't anticipate reporting on any of those items.
All right, we'll recess to closed session.